What's up, y'all? Today we're in Midtown Atlanta to go on a tour of the city so you can see what this area is like here in the heart of Atlanta. Right behind me is Peachtree Street, which has tons of history and is certainly one of the most well-known parts of Atlanta and especially Midtown. Midtown, as you can imagine, is right in the middle of Atlanta. Kind of the southern part of Atlanta is like the downtown area, and then north of here would be like Buckhead or maybe somewhat Brookhaven in the northeast, but this is right here in the heart of the city of Atlanta. And Midtown's not necessarily a city, it's kind of like a district. I wouldn't even call it a neighborhood, but it really encompasses lots of different neighborhoods. And one of the things that makes Midtown different than the other parts is that it has this kind of arts section here right off of Peachtree Road. If you're thinking about buying a home here in Midtown or any part of Metro Atlanta, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. I'm the one who answers those phone calls and those text messages and those emails, and I'd be happy to help with your moving needs to the Atlanta area. Is that it has this arts area here right off of Peachtree Street. This is definitely one of the most well-known parts of Midtown. Peachtree Street has lots of history. Many people would say it's kind of like the origins of Atlanta, and it's not necessarily having to do with peach trees. The story is that the Native Americans called the pine tree a pitch tree, and so the pitch tree eventually became the peach tree, and so this is where the name of this road comes from. And so this is not only the beginning and the origins of the city of Atlanta, but it's also, there was apparently a fort named Fort Peachtree. And so it was around this area here in Midtown, right off of Peachtree Street. And so this is really the history of this road. Always construction going on here in Atlanta and definitely in Midtown as well. Right behind me is some kind of renovation they've got going on. And then I'm also filming this like during the fall, December, right around Christmas time as well. So lots of Christmas decorations all around this area. This is First Presbyterian Church right here on Peachtree Street. And the thing that kind of makes this unique is that it has this old feel, this old vibe to the building, and it's right next to the High Art Museum, which is super modern on the left. And then on the right, we have, again, a more modern kind of business office complex tower there. And so this is so typical of Atlanta to have this mix of the new and the old right in the same area. Definitely a hallmark of the city of Atlanta, First Presbyterian Church. But then right next door, we have the High Art Museum. This is the Woodruff Art Center. And so not only do we have the High Art Museum, we also have the Alliance Theater over here. Actually just recently saw a production at the Alliance, the Christmas Carol, which was super interesting. So they have quite a few theaters and museums here off Peachtree Street. The most famous is the Fox Theater, which is at the very end of Peachtree Road in Midtown. So we're gonna check out that as well. But this is the High Art Museum, and so definitely a very modern building. You can see the skyscrapers there in the background that really mark the Midtown area. Pre-Civil War, Midtown used to be an area where the people who lived in Atlanta and they wanted to get away from the city of Atlanta, they kind of moved like far out of the city. They came to this area here. And so Peachtree Street is known for having had giant mansions and very wealthy people used to live here in the Midtown area right off of Peachtree Street. Now it's really become this kind of business district, economy hub for the city of Atlanta. And it was right around 1980s, 1990s is when they really had a lot of revitalizing to become this business hub. Lots of these towers and buildings here were built during the 80s and 90s during that revitalizing period, and it really changed the way that Midtown looked. And it kind of used to be a much quieter, sleepy part of the city of Atlanta, but when they did a lot of this construction during that time period, it really changed the face of Midtown to become what it is today. Right next to the High Museum is the Alliance Theater. The Alliance Theater is actually back there. And then over here is actually one of my favorite coffee shops. So we're gonna go in here and get some coffee. It is freezing cold today. I think it's actually like the coldest day of the year we've had so far. The low this morning was about 22 degrees. The high is about 45 degrees. So kind of a cold day for being out here filming. So we're definitely gonna get some hot coffee and show you what this coffee shop here looks like. Actually, before we go see this coffee shop, the architecture of the High Museum is definitely super unique and something you don't see all around Atlanta. So let's go check out this coffee shop here. They've got this cool seating out here. Of course, nobody's out here right now because it's so damn cold. Not really a whole lot of homes for sale right off of Peachtree Street here in Midtown. The majority of the homes that are for sale are kind of like west of here near Atlantic Station. They have homes for sale, and then a little east of here near Piedmont Park is really where you're going to find homes for sale. The majority of Peachtree Street is this kind of commercial area. So super easy to walk to, you know, definitely a walkable area. I know many people who call me and they say they want to live in an area like this where it's easily walkable. You can't really find that in the suburbs, but you certainly could find that here in Midtown. Usually all of these trees lose their leaves during the winter time, and so it looks a bit kind of gray here in the winter, but during the summertime, all of these trees here are just completely filled green, super lush. But it's definitely a late fall, actually. Certainly seems like fall has started a little later this year. You can see we still got some orange in some of these trees here in the background. But eventually, in a few more weeks, all of these trees will be completely bare. So it kind of starts to look a little gray and bland all around this area with all the gray buildings and the trees without leaves. It just starts to look kind of bland during that time. A bit more construction they got going on over here. This is actually like the backside of where the Alliance Theater is, and the Atlanta Symphony is right in this building here. And so they are still doing some construction here on the backside. But that's kind of like the side entrance or the back entrance to the area, to the Alliance Theater. All of this is super easy to walk around. Very often around here, there are people who work in these office complexes. They will walk to like the restaurants around here. Definitely a lot of restaurants here on Peachtree Street. We're actually headed up to Colony Square over here, which we're gonna see in just a second. This building is where like the biggest newspaper in Atlanta is, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. As long as I have lived here for like 30 years, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution has been like the main newspaper for everybody who lives in this area. And then as we get closer down here, I'm kind of walking south on Peachtree Street. You can see the buildings start to get a lot taller. That building here is actually like the famous King and Spalding building. I'm sure we've got some B-roll of that building, but there are definitely a lot more as we continue to go down south on this road. We're kind of getting away from like the arts district of Midtown and getting closer to the business district. This area south of, like a little farther south on Peachtree Street is really where the business district kind of starts to blend with the arts district. You can see the buildings getting a lot taller over here. And then right across the street is Colony Square. Let's go over there and check out that area. No question, the best burger in all of Georgia is at H&F. They've got the best burger. If you're ever in the area, I would definitely suggest H&F. This is one of my favorites. And then this is Colony Square. Lots of restaurants all around here. And then right in the background there, they've got like a food court area, which we're going to check out as well. So definitely like endless options of restaurants here in Colony Square. While Colony Square has been here for a long time, I think the 60s or 70s, Colony Square got a lot of renovation in like the 2010s. And so it looks very different today than it used to look all of these restaurants and all of these shops kind of are more recent, and they was all part of that renovation period during the 2010s, and I believe it really just finished a few years ago. And so it definitely looks very different around here in the last few decades. You can see they've even done the super classic like green synthetic lawn thing that we see in many of the town centers all around here. They've got the big screen TV there. I saw a tennis match here one time. So they play a lot of like sporting events and stuff here. When it's not super cold, there's lots of people out here, but there are probably a lot of people inside the food court. So let's go check out what that looks like. In case you want to know where the most important part of Midtown is, it's right here, Chick-fil-A, right here at Colony Square. Probably the best restaurant in all of Midtown. Sometimes people ask about the safety here in Atlanta, and like, is this a safe area or is it a dangerous area? And it's kind of a hard question to answer because safety is really about like your perspective. You know, if you come from a super small town, then you might find that an area like this is more crime than you're used to. But if you come from an area where there is more crime, or maybe a big city, you know, then this is probably not that bad. For context, if it helps, I don't think it's a dangerous area here in Midtown. I would have no problem bringing my family here and my kids. In fact, I do bring my kids here sometimes. It's certainly a safe area. Now, I wouldn't suggest walking around here in the middle of the night, you know. Now, of course, it is a big city, so you certainly want to be keeping, you know, your typical kind of safety practices that you would do in any big city, but this is not an area that I would say you don't want to live because it's dangerous or anything like that. I wouldn't classify Midtown as that kind of area. And then right across the street from the Fox Theater is, again, super famous, very well known, the Georgia Terrace Hotel. This opened in 1929 and again has a very rich history. It was renovated many times since then. It used to be an office park, I believe. It used to be actually an apartment building as well. So definitely lots going on for the Georgia Terrace Hotel. Today, it's kind of like a staple here in Midtown and on Peachtree Street. Many famous people, presidents have stayed at the hotel here, and so definitely a staple here in Midtown. So we've made it over here to the fabulous Fox Theater, as it's known by many Atlanta locals, here on Peachtree Street, and we're kind of like on the most southern part of Peachtree Street, the most southern part of Midtown. And then so the fabulous Fox has a very rich history, and almost all most Atlantans know about the Fox and have heard about the Fox. And the Fox Theater was actually built in 1929 by the Shriners Group. And so it was somewhere around that time period when the Shriners ran out of funding. So it was purchased by a man named William Fox, who was like a film mogul founder during that time period. And he turned it into like this movie palace that it is today. And so it certainly has a very rich history. In the 1970s, there was a company, Southern Bell, who is now AT&T. They announced plans to purchase the Fox Theater, and so they were going to demolish it, and there was huge public outcry by many of the locals in the area, and there was kind of this campaign to, quote, save the Fox, and they fortunately were successful in saving the Fox. And so again, a very rich history with this theater, and this is kind of where we see a lot of Broadway plays. So things like Wicked or Hamilton, all kinds of Broadway plays are done here at the Fox Theater. Definitely a lot of great things about living here in Midtown, but of course there is also some bad things about living here. If you want a full list of the pros and the cons of living in Midtown Atlanta, you can check out that video right here. I'll see you in the next one.